Audio test, audio test. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Audio test.
Yes.
Audio test, audio test.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you try a few other mics, please?
Test 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
This one sounds a little low. Can we put the volume up?
Sounds good.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Sounds good.
No, I think we have enough.
And I think we're M30.
Okay. Will do. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Thank you again.
I. Thanks. How are you doing, Albert? Oh, the wedding? Was it fabulous?
Well,
In the city hall where?
had two.
After. Oh, is she?
Like, oh, okay, I'll give you the regular ticket.
2008. 2008. After we're supposed to remove her from. Right, that's it.
That'll do it.
And
Modern day, when it's modern day, they're tailgating there early.
Brother of the bride.
you know,
I came a couple times to tailgate with them. Modern day games.
And poor grandma.
Yeah, no, I have some friends that their kids go to modern day.
so anyway.
Come down also Saturday last year. Man, they were there. 9 a.m. All day. Yeah, the
But she
game.
didn't get to wear a dress.
She did. Oh, no, Dory didn't get to wear hospital.
I'll find Lorenzo Garden.
So Dory's your daughter, Caitlin's the granddaughter.
Oh, yeah,
So the
no.
granddaughter got to do the wedding.
Fun.
Your daughter was rushed to the virgin.
Oh, good to see you.
God.
Surgery's Friday. I could go to a Thanks.
My maiden name is Perez, so I was not the
Now, you
Dory's
mentioned Bass.
Yes, the last name is Bass.
Fund the emergency.
I was born in Winnemucca, Nevada, which was
And so they're-
I also had a Bass restaurant.
Spanish and French.
hit the top. Planes.
No, I can't. I can't.
I
I can't. Exactly.
and I'm going, now what did she
You were
say
supposed
about?
to have a relaxing wedding thing going on.
And I'm going, what the hell?
Yeah.
It's, you know, and so forth, and we're on the tarmac
They rush, yeah.
and so forth, so we were there 20 minutes. Or say what else can happen, because something. And just recover.
Gotcha, no worries.
And I imagined you like having a. So how's Dory? Is she great? That's family. I'm glad you're here. And that you made it through all that.
Test, test,
Put a lot of trust in those things.
test, test.
Hey, Ed, how are you doing? Ah, that's good. Some water. Drill.
Well, my turnout, I'm sorry, you know.
So you're, for somebody.
Like to say the pledge.
Oh, crazy that. I had my selective in the office, I was like, I had it on all day too. Good, good. Busy.
No problem getting a job? Well, I get a letter from the Japanese community.
You barely have space for one. What can you do? Like, I don't tell her to figure it out together. It just hurt me. Go. Maybe. Yeah, I know that it's hard to.
I'm good. I'm making a mess. Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you, Alejandra. Okay. Good to meet you.
I'm exactly.
Almost Halloween, I was not available to go, I was thinking about
I just stayed home at my house. We had
Came over to Sky.
the whole day. I ran out. I'm gonna have a bad reputation. I ran out of all my candy and I have like. Somewhere, some kid's gonna go.
I was thinking of myself.
You know that happens. Go through and then you. Third one.
Then they run to us, so we can, like,
this button?
See if it's on. Turn it on.
We have that. Different things.
That's the director.
If everybody could take their seat, we could get started, please. Thank you. I would like to call the meeting on November 7th, 2024, of the HRC to order. It is now 4:31. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll have Commissioner Hardy lead us. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Christie? Here. Commissioner Escamilla? Commissioner Hardy?
Present.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Present.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Present.
Commissioner Shipp?
Present.
Vice Chair Marashi?
Here.
Vice Chair, quorum has been reached at 4:32.
Thank you. I would like to remind my fellow commissioners, turn on your microphones when speaking and off when not speaking. And when speaking, please place the microphone about 4 inches away from you. Thank you. Members of the public may attend the Historic Resource Commission meeting in person or virtually via Zoom. I now invite the Commission Secretary to describe the way the public can access and participate in the meeting.
This meeting is being live streamed via our portal at www.santa-ana.primegov.com/public/portal and to YouTube at www.youtube.com/City of Santa Ana videos. If you would like to provide public comment, you may do so in the following ways. Join the meeting via Zoom, enter meeting ID number 892-925-11671. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered. You can also join the meeting by calling 669-900-6833. Enter meeting ID number 892925-11671. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press 9 to let us know you would like to speak. You will be called upon by the last 3 digits of your phone number. After you're called upon, you may press 6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. I will alert you when your time is up.
Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. Secretary, does anyone wish to speak?
If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on non-agenda items, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on non-agenda items, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on non-agenda items, please dial 9 and then 6 to unmute yourself. I will wait for a few seconds. Vice Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Moving on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve item A, minutes from September 5th, 2024, and item B, excused absences?
Just a question, is, the two, are they absent or will they be joining us?
I didn't get a confirmation from both of them.
Oh, okay. I move the consent calendar.
And I'll second.
Secretary, please call roll. Vote.
Commissioner Christie?
Yes?
Commissioner Escamilla? Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ship?
Yes.
Vice Chair Marashi?
Yes.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Escamilla and Commissioner Padilla absent.
That concludes the consent calendar. Moving on to the business calendar session. I will now review the process for the public hearing so that everyone knows what to expect. Staff will provide a presentation and answer questions from the commission. The public hearing will be opened. The applicant will be given the opportunity to speak, limited to 15 minutes. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to comment, limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to comments made by the public, limited to 5 minutes. The public hearing will be closed. Discussion will return to the commission with formal action taken to approve, deny, or continue review of the application. Please consider the following suggestions when organizing your comments. Please state your name and address, strictly voluntary, and state whether you support, oppose, or are neutral to the proposal. Your statement should include all pertinent facts within your knowledge. Please note, the formal action by the Historic Resources Commission shall become effective after the 10th day appeal period unless the City Council holds a public hearing on the matter. Then the formal action will become effective on the day following the hearing and decision by the City Council. An appeal from the decision or requirements of the commission must be filled with the Secretary of Council and a copy sent to the Planning Department within 10 days of the date of the commission's actions. The appeal may be made by any interested party, individual, or group. Let the record be known that at 4:36, Commissioner Escamilla arrived. Item 1. This is the time and place for the historic exterior modification application 2024-02 for the property located at 222 South Cypress Avenue, located within the multiple family residence R3 zoning district. Before we begin, do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regard to this item?
I visited the property.
Any others? Yes.
I visited the property and walked around.
Okay.
Since I live in the south part of town, I've driven by that area for many years, so I'm familiar with the exterior.
Okay. Any others? Okay. James Williams will now provide a brief presentation.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. The first item on tonight's agenda is a request for approval of historic exterior modification application number 2024-02 for the Dinsmore House, located at 222 South Cypress Street. The application is to restore all existing vinyl windows to historically appropriate wood windows, legalize an unpermitted rear porch enclosure, and replace the non-historic metal handrail at the rear porch with a more appropriate new wood railing. In addition, existing window trim for all historical windows would be modified as needed to match original window trim dimensions and materials, and repairs will be made as necessary to damaged trim, siding, and fascia. The project is located at the northwest corner of Cypress and Pine Streets. The Dinsmore House is the easternmost building on the parcel depicted here, with an additional craftsman-style residence located to the west on this. That would be to the right, to the left, excuse me. Project work is limited to the exterior of the Dinsmore House, excepting the legalization of the porch enclosure, and will not directly affect the craftsman residence. The Dinsmore House's primary facade is on the east, facing Cypress Street, while the secondary south facade fronts Pine Street. Constructed circa 1890, the Dinsmore House is a two-story L-shaped farmhouse influenced by the Queen Anne and Greek Revival styles. In 2002, the property was listed as number 309 on the Santa Ana Register of Historic Resources, or Historic Properties, excuse me. Character-defining features of the Dinsmore House that should be preserved include, but may not be limited to, shiplap wood exterior wall cladding, roof configuration, massing, original windows and doors where extant, though there are none now, and architectural details such as porch roof trim and window surrounds. The craftsman-style residence at the rear of the parcel does not contribute to the property's significance. Pardon me, I am off here. Okay. The proposed project includes the following elements: restoration of all 19 existing vinyl windows to wood windows. These are located at 16 historic and 3 non-historic window openings throughout all facades. Modification of the window trim as needed. Legalization of an unpermitted rear porch, as mentioned before. Replacement of the back porch handrail, and repair or in-kind replacement of weathered or otherwise damaged fascia, siding, and trim. Here is a site plan depicting the Dinsmore House on the right and the Craftsman to the left. Note the location of the rear porch enclosure, which is outlined in red. And this is the first story floor plan of the Dinsmore House, also highlighting the porch enclosure. And, oops, I apologize. And something is missing here. No, I apologize. And this is the floor plan for the second story. No interior work is proposed for this floor. Okay. To illustrate the proposed changes, I'd like to go through each elevation, existing and proposed. This first slide shows the primary facade. Project work for this facade involves the removal and restoration of one window each from the first and second stories. On the first story, the new wood sash window will include stylistically appropriate picture pane with the transom light above. On the second story, one existing window will be replaced with a wood 1/1 hung window. Note that the window to the left, which is currently a small aluminum window, sliding window, will be restored under another project. Sorry, it's the window to the right, I apologize. And here we have the west facade. Is that right? South facade, which faces Pine Street. The historic windows will be restored with wood-hung windows. At the rear of the house, we see the non-historic railing, which is proposed for replacement with a wood unit in the style of the existing railings that are at the front porch. And here we have the west elevation, where alterations include the restoration of 2 upper story windows with hung wood sash windows, and then the restoration of 2 fixed windows on the first floor, in addition to the legalization of the porch and the handrail as mentioned before. And then work on the south elevation. It includes the restoration of 3 hung windows, 1 fixed window, and 1 awning window. Here we have a conceptual figure depicting the general appearance of the new wood-hung replacement windows. Note that the figure provided to staff depicts upper and lower glazing divided vertically, which will not feature in the proposed 1/1 hung sashes. However, the graphic does show the general characteristics of the proposed wood sash, specifically including the OG lugs or horns, which evidence suggests were present in the historic windows. The slide also calls out the fact that under the project there is restoration and alteration work proposed for the wood frame, the frame and nearby siding. The proposed exterior modifications are consistent with a rehabilitation project, and as such were evaluated against the 10 criteria of the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Oops, I apologize. Please note that rehabilitation standards 4, 7, and 8 are not applicable. Project elements are designed to generally restore the historic character of the subject property. Primarily, this will be achieved through the removal of all existing vinyl windows and the restoration of the windows with wood sash units, consistent with the house's original appearance and Queen Anne and Greek Revival style. Throughout the residence, as necessary, repairs will be made to other wood elements such as siding, window frames, and fascia. The repairs will help to retain the appearance where possible, the historic fabric by limiting the removal of damaged materials and replacing any lost material like for like. To the extent possible, the replacement of the windows and other features will be based on physical and documentary evidence. None of the proposed work will result in the loss of features, finishes, or construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize the house. Finally, the rear addition proposed for legalization meets applicable standards in that it is generally consistent with the architecture of the Dinsmore House, yet by virtue of its scale, form, and placement is differentiated from and subordinate to the original portions of the building. Moreover, the addition could be removed without any appreciable impact on the essential form and integrity of the house. With that, staff recommends that the commission adopt a resolution approving a certificate of appropriateness, for historic exterior modification application number 2024-02.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions or comments of staff? Yes, Commissioner Hawes.
Thank you. So my first question is, the work hasn't been done, is that correct? Or some of the work has been done?
My understanding is that the work has not been done.
And is that what we're approving? We're looking at what's going to be done?
Yes, this is proposed and it would require commission approval.
So I noticed that, especially in the front facade, it was disturbing that it looked like the largest window on the first story is plastic, not glass. Are the new windows going to be glass? Do we know?
I don't know that specifically, but
I don't know if the material's plastic, but I don't think it's glass. It might be a wood window frame. I don't know if it's been, but we need to know if it's going to be glass. Is it a problem if it's not glass? Is that not historic? It seems to me it would not be historic.
I don't know that there's any intention to include panes that would not be glass.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I said something. When I mentioned the vinyl windows, I don't know if this is the source of.
No,
Okay.
when I observed the property, there are some windows, at least one, that the pane is not, it appears to not be glass. It's
Right.
all warped and weird looking.
The intention is to restore the windows to their historic character, so they would be wood sashes, and I would assume glass panes.
Okay. And then I noticed in the window detail, I didn't see a drip cap molding as part of the window detail, and see up top there's a little arrow that's missing a description. And if you look at the windows, most of them have that drip cap molding now on top of the trim. So I don't know if that's something we need to make sure they all match or not in the proposal. And then I think I noticed that maybe they didn't all have like an apron or a sill that all matched. So we need to make sure that happens too, I'm thinking. I'm not sure if that's appropriate. And then the enclosed back porch, it's enclosed now, right? It's a shed roof. And so the property owner's just trying to legalize the enclosure. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then in the back elevation, there's, where is it? I believe there's like a sliding window. Is that going to be a double hung window? And it looks like it's smaller than the original window. So.
Could you be more specific about which
The rear
window?
elevation. Okay. So the porch railing has not been replaced yet. It's still metal.
That's correct.
Restore fixed window. So the sliding window now is going to become a fixed window? Is that what the proposal is? It looks like it.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Do we know if the applicant's here tonight? Good, okay. So you'll be able to ask your questions of them when they are up there. Great. Are there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Christie.
Can you go back to the slide? But it stated that, go back, that something was going to be separate? Okay, restoration under a separate project. Could you explain that? What this?
Yes, okay. So currently, we have what appears to be the historic window trim surrounding an original window opening that's been enclosed with wood siding. And within that, there is a non-original, obviously, aluminum sliding window. There will be another application to restore that window to its historic condition, but it's not being done under the application that's being considered right now.
It seems strange because normally you have everything together. Was there a reason that that one would be under separate?
I do not know. That might be a better question for the applicant.
Okay.
Are there any more questions for staff? The public hearing is now open. Does the commission have any questions of the applicant? Can the applicant come up, please?
My name is Yahaira. His name is
I'm
Lucas.
Lucas. So we bought the house like 3 years ago. The sellers told us everything they did was permitted. What they did, they put in vinyl windows. 2 weeks into living in the house, I get a citation from Santa Ana.
Yeah.
And for the last 3 years, I've been trying to replace them back to wood the way you want them. So hopefully today we can move forward.
I grew up in the city of Orange, so I grew up with all the historic homes, and my dream was always to own a historic home and restore it, and we just want to do right by the city and the county.
Great. Thank you for coming. Questions of the applicant? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Hardy.
Hello, nice to meet you. I think it's fabulous. It's on that corner where, I also have driven by it hundreds of times because I live in that part of Santa Ana. So it's really exciting that you're wanting to improve it. the exterior. I have a question, the home, is there two homes on the lot?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like a triplex. Yeah.
So the front is.
So the whole
house.
corner is one property, is what I'm
Yes,
trying to
That's the
say.
historic one, yeah.
Okay, great. So that's it. Congratulations for like having that property that's going to be fabulous, and it already is. So thank you.
Commissioner Christie.
My question, could you answer that one?
Yeah, so there's tenants have been in there for like 15 years, and we don't want to kick them out. There's a bathroom right there, so I think they put that window, I don't know really what
40
happened,
years ago?
a long time ago.
Yeah.
They did renovations. So we don't want to kick them out to redo the bathroom just to do the window.
Okay.
So we want to do it later when maybe they move out, we'll renovate the bathroom and do the window at the same time. It's our plan.
Yeah. It's a bigger project and we don't have the income for it at this very moment. Yeah.
Yeah, we've spent all the money on the house and then find out we have all these
Yeah.
things to
so-
do.
Don't you just love it?
Yeah.
Well, welcome. We welcome everyone from Orange, and thank you so much for your due diligence in bringing this back to its historic.
Yes, Commissioner.
I have a comment. I was looking at in the extended information we have, your property has a lot of history. It's one of the original houses that were built in that area. It was at East Side, but now it's Pacific Park. So I was very happy to see that I lived in that, first in 1979 when I got married on Maple Street. So going up and down Cypress was I saw that house, actually I was interested in it years ago, but I'm very happy to see that you want to restore the wood windows and bring its character back, because truly in Santa Ana, we have jewels in the city, and we need to preserve and keep our character and our history, so I applaud you for that. Thank you.
Any other questions of the commissioners of the applicant? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recording secretary, have we received any written communication, or is there a member of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We have received written communication that has been posted online. The communication states that the member of the community will not be able to attend the meeting. There is no other information provided. If we have somebody that would like to speak, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on this item, please tell 9 and then 6 to unmute yourself. I will wait for a few seconds. Vice Chair, we do not have any speakers.
The public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the matter? Commissioner Christie.
If I just add a quick disclosure, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize this is property is within 500 feet of property interest of mine. Just wanted to disclose that and just realize that right now.
All right, thank you.
If we can make a recommendation, the window that is not a part of the project looks like it's part of a design that's consistent with what is being done for the remainder of the windows. If the commission's comfortable, staff would like to recommend adding a modified conditions that allows the applicant to at a future date, change out the window consistent with the design that is being approved today, so that they do not have to go through the process of applying for a new application at that time.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Christie, would you like to amend your motion?
I haven't even said it yet, but you did such a great job. I'd like to adopt a resolution approving certificate of appropriateness for historic interior modification, application number 2024-02 as condition. And once again, Executive Director Min, aye. And.
Oh, and the condition as recommended by staff.
The whole thing? I commit this to,
So staff recommended a condition to allow for the future replacement of the window that has been identified as not a part of the project, and to make sure that it's consistent with the design that's being approved tonight for that window.
what he said.
Got it.
Everybody got
I'll
it?
second that.
Okay? We have
Chair.
a first, we have a second. Secretary, please call.
Vice Chair, if I may, please, really quick. Thank you, Commissioner Escamilla, for bringing that to our attention, that you live within 500 feet of this property.
Well, I'd have a property interest within 500 feet.
You have a property interest within 500 feet. For that reason, I think under Section 8B of the bylaws, it would be best that you abstain from this.
Absolutely.
And then, with that said, if you would please absent yourself from the room while the vote is conducted.
Go to your room.
Thank you very much.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Christie and a second by Commissioner Hardy. Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Christie,
Yes?
Commissioner Escamilla, Commissioner Hardy,
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui,
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla, Commissioner Rincon,
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ship,
Yes.
Vice Chair Marashi.
Yes.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Padilla absent and Commissioner Escamilla abstaining.
Congratulations, homeowners. This is the time and place for historic exterior modification application number 202. Yes, sorry. This is the time and place for historic exterior modification application 2024-04 for the property located at 2208 North Flower Street, located within the single-family residential R1 zoning district. Before we begin, do any commissioners have anything they wish to disclose regarding this item? Yes, Commissioner Christie.
Chair, I visited the property, but I did not speak to the applicant.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Yes.
Yes,
Commissioner
Chair.
Hardy.
I also visited the property.
Thank you. Since I live across the street and 2 houses down, I will exclude myself, and I'm going to let Commissioner Christie resume the meeting and then call me back. Thank you.
If I can assist the chair with moving the meeting forward at this point in time, if
Yeah,
our planner can please present the project.
right, here it is. Okay, I'm sorry. You think I know this by now, since I was chair for 5 years. Okay.
It's been a while. That's
It's
okay.
been a while. And now, James Williams will now provide a brief presentation.
Thank you. This item is a request for approval of historic exterior modification application number 2024-04 for the CJ Young House located at 2208 North Flower Street. The request is to allow the interior remodel of the single-family residence to include demolition of partition walls and a floor plan reconfiguration for a combined kitchen, dining room, or sorry, excuse me, a floor plan reconfiguration for kitchen, dining room, family room, primary bedroom, and laundry room. Exterior work along the primary east elevation includes removal of an existing vinyl sliding window and its replacement with a new steel casement tripartite window, in addition to the like-for-like replacement of 3 metal casement windows, while the north elevation includes the removal of a horizontal sliding window, excuse me, of 2 horizontal sliding windows, and their replacement for, I apologize, my notes are a little bit messed up. The work on the north elevation includes the removal of a horizontal sliding door, and its replacement for 2 new metal windows, and like-for-like replacement of 2 existing wood horizontal windows. The south elevation includes legalizing the removal of a previously existing metal horizontal sliding window, the removal of an existing door and metal screen, and the removal of a horizontal window and French doors and their replacement with 2 metal casement windows. The west elevation includes the removal of 3 existing vinyl windows for glazed metal sliding doors. Lastly, the work would also include new brick within the porch area to level the existing brick floor, the removal of an existing window along the north elevation of the detached garage, and legalization of a previously unpermitted changes to the detached garage, including the removal of sliding doors on the north and west elevation. This figure depicts the property in its setting. Note that the residence fronts the east side of the parcel with a detached garage at the southwest corner. The C.J. Young House was built in 1954 with elements of the ranch and minimal traditional styles. It is a contributor to the National and California Register listed Floral Park Historic District, but is not listed individually on the Santa Ana Register of Historic Properties. Because the property is listed on the National and California registers, it qualifies as a historic property for the purposes of Santa Ana Municipal Code, Chapter 30. Character defining features of the C.J. Young House that should be preserved include its L-plan, cross-gabled roof with winged gable ends, board and batten and stucco exterior wall cladding, a side light adjacent to the front door, porch with brick floor and porch supports with curved bracing, and historic steel casement and wood sliding multi-light windows. I'd like to go through the proposed modifications facade by facade. For the primary east facade, there will be the restoration of the focal window with the installation of a tripart steel casement window, which will be modeled on the original based on available evidence. The replacement of the existing glazed front door with a new historically appropriate wood panel door, like-for-like replacement of 3 metal casement windows with which will have the same size, operation, and dimensions, and the leveling of the brick floor, porch floor, as mentioned before. Proposed changes on the south facade include the removal of 1 non-historic door and application of new stucco fill, and the legalization of the removal of 1 non-historic window. The removal of 1 set of historic French doors facing the rear patio, and installation of a new metal sash casement window at the same location. Removal of 1 non-historic window facing the rear patio, and installation of a new metal sash casement window at that location. For the north facade, we'll see the applicant proposes removal of 1 non-historic sliding glass door and installation of 2 metal replacement windows at that location, removal of 1 historic metal sash window and replacement with a new metal sash casement window, removal of 2 historic wood horizontal windows due to deterioration, and these will be replaced like for like with 2 new windows of the same character. And then finally, the removal of 3 linear feet of board and batten siding, which will be removed and replaced with stucco to accommodate the slight relocation of the easternmost window on this facade. Changes to the rear west elevation would include the removal of 1 non-historic vinyl window and its replacement with 1 metal frame sliding glass door in the enlarged opening, and the removal of 2 paired 15 light wood sash windows, the enlargement of the openings at this location, and then the installation of a single metal French door and light assembly. And then finally, the changes to the garage would include, as we mentioned before, the removal of historic window and legalization of the removal of the sliding doors. This is the proposed site plan, which notably shows that there is no change in the square footage of the property proposed. And this is the demolition plan. The interior demolitions are indicated in red dashed lines, which show that several partitions will be removed to reorganize the space. In addition to that, as depicted here, all doors and windows will be demolished ahead of their replacement. Here's the proposed floor plan, which shows that new partitions will be constructed to reorganize the several spaces, including the bedroom, walk-in closet, bathroom, family room, and a combined open plan kitchen, living room, dining room space. And so this is the construction plan for the, well, this is intended to show the construction plan for the exterior. I think the most notable elements here for the purposes of the Secretary of the Interior Standards analysis would be the green X's, which represent either the restoration of windows or their in-kind replacement. Also note that two large historic wood windows will be removed from the rear facing the patio in that courtyard there. And I'd just like to quickly go through the elevations. This is the primary east facade. The window proposed for restoration is on the far left, and the other windows will be replaced like for like. This is the north elevation, where we have 3 windows which will be replaced like for like at the frontmost portion of this elevation, which would be from the middle to the far left. And then we see also the sliding glass door, which will be replaced with windows to accommodate the interior reorganization of the house. And this slide illustrates, of course, the changes to the south elevation, which are limited to the legalization of the door and window, in addition to the replacement of the patio-facing door and window with 2 new steel casement windows. Changes to the rear-facing west facade include the demolition of the existing 15-light windows and the non-original sliding window at the rear. I'd just note that there is a large French door and light assembly, which will be facing the patio depicted on the right side of the proposed elevation. And then finally, this depicts the minimal changes to the garage, which are proposed, just the removal of the window and legalization of the already removed sliding glass doors. The proposed exterior modifications are considered a rehabilitation project, and as such were evaluated against the 10 criteria of the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Please note that standards 4, 5, 7, 8, and 10 were not applicable to this review. Pardon me. Staff has determined that the project as conditioned, complies generally with the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. In addition to interior remodeling, the project proposes to remove and to replace several windows and doors throughout the exteriors of the residence and garage, and to level the front porch with new compatible brickwork. Some aspects of the proposed project diverge from the standards, specifically the removal and replacement of the historic 15-light windows and French doors at the rear of the residence. However, to compensate for this loss of historic fabric, the project has been designed thoughtfully to maintain and restore the historic integrity of the or the residents' primary facade and the most publicly visible areas of the north facade by replacing in kind historic, deteriorated historic windows on those facades and restoring the tripartite steel casement focal window. Additional alterations to the north and south facades, which are of limited or no visibility from the right-of-way, respect the historic character of the residence by removing a non-historic door and window on the south elevation and introducing stylistically compatible multi-light metal sash windows on 2 locations on the north elevation. This, paired with the installation of new metal sash doors and windows, will ensure that all other proposed windows and doors are consistent with the historic materials and character of the residence and with the ranch style of architecture in general. Although the historic French doors and 15 light wood windows will be lost, their placement at the subordinate south and west facades limits the visual impact of these changes. So overall, despite some discrepancies with the standards, the project maintains the integrity of the property such that its historic character will remain readily apparent from the public right-of-way, and the property will continue to be eligible as a contributor to the Floral Park Historic District. With that, staff recommends the commission adopt a resolution approving certificate of appropriateness for historic exterior modification application number 2024-04.
Thank you so much, James. Does the commission have any questions or comments for staff?
On the door, on the picture we have here, it has a side light. Is that historic? Is it supposed to have a side light? The door could, I'm not sure it's a red door. That's the one, you're replacing the door, but in the picture you have here, it's solid and no side light, or I did not see it correctly?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. We do not have, well, based on visual observation and knowledge of the ranch style, we believe the side light is original to the house. The replacement of the door will be within the existing door frame and will not affect the side light. That'll be retained.
Commissioner. Anybody else? Go.
Okay. Hello, sorry, for staff. So it looks like we're just going to be removing some of those original historic rear windows for the French doors. I know that we typically do this, but just confirming that it's either in the recommendations or just part of staff actions to make sure that they're removed and then given over to any entity that works kind of in restoration. So just, these are historic windows that might be appropriate for other locations. So any sort of salvage operations, I think those are typically included in the recommended actions. I'm just trying to either confirm it's there or if it's just standard practice to make sure that the windows are recycled if feasible.
And that is not currently part of the recommendation, but I mean, we can include that.
Yeah, and I think it was just like, questions is in the future, just, part of standard practice. If we just do that, and we kind of mentioned it, and typically it'll go to like the Santa Ana Historic Preservation Society, or I would imagine OC Preserves, or Preserve OC for mid-century work. So just as long as we do that consistently and communicate, there's the option, that's it.
Thank you, yes.
Any other commissioners with questions? Okay, then moving on, comment. I'd now like to open the public hearing. Does the commission I'd like the applicant to speak before we ask the question of give the applicant, would you like to come in? Come on down.
Stephanie? And my name is V. If it's okay, we have a prepared statement.
Yeah, you mind putting that out there?
Yeah, if it's okay with everyone, we have a prepared statement.
Right.
So our minds aren't discombobulated. So, dear committee, so my name is V and this is Stephanie. So I'm an emergency room doctor and an assistant professor at a medical school in the Inland Empire. And this is Stephanie. She's a digital marketer at El Pollo Loco. So I was born and raised here all my life in Santa Ana, minus the 4 years obviously I spent in New York for medical school. Steph lived in Long Beach actually, and that's where we met until she saw what the beautiful light of was Santa Ana. So she came here with us. So we purchased this home in 2023. So a tidbit I wanted to share was growing up in Santa Ana, I used to work at the Discovery Science Center, that huge cube that you can see out by the 5 freeway. And my way to get to this work was my dad would take me to work and we would drive through this beautiful neighborhood. We actually never knew what this neighborhood was called. And I remember telling my dad, like, wow, this is such a beautiful neighborhood. And my dad would always respond with, well, maybe in another life, we might be able to afford to live here. So fast forward to April of 2023, we actually saw the listing for this minimalist traditional home, and we suddenly realized it was actually in the dream neighborhood that we thought of when we were a kid. So truth be told, funny enough, we actually passed on this home initially when we saw it. During the open house walkthrough, there was kind of an uncomfortable odor emanating throughout the entire house. We also noticed that a lot of the property itself was worn or in complete disrepair. Most of the windows were actually held shut by metal wire, and the wood floors were cracked and caked in kind of black dirt and dust. There was also broken glass and various unused kitchen and gym equipment items just kind of strewn across the backyard. Staff was like, sure, we could probably potentially purchase this home. The house wasn't the loving home that we had imagined. However, as Steph and I had left the open house, we kept thinking to ourselves how sad we were that it's such a beautiful home in this beautiful neighborhood should deserve a second chance. Not only that, given the current condition of the home, it was also our golden opportunity to actually be able to get into this beautiful neighborhood because truth be told, we were in a situation where even though we were both working professionals, we weren't immune to how expensive it's gotten to actually purchase a home. Being children of struggling immigrants, we also have to build our life around considerations of our financial capacities to so care, provide, and of course, love our parents. With some convincing on my end to Steph, on May 5th, 2023, Steph and I were both elated that we were actually moving into this neighborhood. And yet we were also completely sad by the sight of our bank accounts and the fact that we couldn't actually live in this home. So we still currently do not live in this home. We knew this house was going to be a huge undertaking as our first home, but we had already imagined growing old here when we saw it. We want this to be our forever home. So finally, we'd like to think that we're doing our best to uphold the home's historical authenticity, and even given our tight budget, as a lot of work needs to be done still to this home to make it functional and safe. The home is currently a contributed property on the registry, as you have heard, and we want to honor the home by keeping it on the registry for decades to come. Steph and I want to preserve and honor the character of this home and of this neighborhood. We want to build a life together, bring awareness to others and to a lot of our friends of how beautiful this neighborhood is, and most importantly, be proud to be citizens of this beautiful city of Santa Ana. And we want to show people how great the city really is. We already have met most of our wonderful neighbors, and we love them all. We'd love to have dinner with them at some point, but we haven't yet. Hopefully at some point, Steph and I can pass this home on to someone else who will be just as enthusiastic as us in preserving the beauty of this home and the Floral Park neighborhood in itself. Thank you.
All right. Wow, what a story. And what courageous underachievement, you know, to come in and save this home and give it a brand new.
Yeah, we want to do what's right, yeah. Yeah.
And so forth. Stephanie, do you have anything or to add?
No, just I would never actually wanted to move to Orange County, but really seeing all the charm that Santa Ana has really changed my mind. I lovingly call it the Long Beach of Orange County, and I mean that in a very nice way.
How neat and so forth. Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to have you. Does any commissioner have any question? Or Hermosa first, or Hardy
Thank
first?
you. I just wanted to say welcome and thank you for sharing your special story. And I hope you enjoy your time in Santa Ana and get to move into that house really soon.
Thank you.
Well, welcome to Santa Ana. Very happy to hear that, and the love for our neighborhoods as you from your childhood or your youth driving by. Floral Park is an amazing neighborhood. I'm in Wilshire Square, so I'm biased. I do events, but I would truly invite you to look at their website, get to know your neighbors. They have fabulous activities. The open house, they have the home tours are amazing. For the Christmas, they do that. They have general meetings you can attend and get to know your neighbors, because again, the character of our city and some of our neighborhoods are jewels, and the fact that you care for them and that attracted you and preserve it, you will find like-minded people who live in this city. So thank you again and the best of luck, and keep us, my 2 cents is if you can keep any of the character, the little details of the interior. I know that doesn't pertain to this, but you will find that you will enjoy keeping those pieces that you might find either whether it's a hardware or whatever, that just keeps that history and that character. It's really something to do.
Thank you so much. Okay. Recording secretary, have we received any written communication?
We have-
Or is there a member of the public that would like to comment on this item?
We have not received written communication. If you're attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you're participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you're calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial 9 and then 6 to unmute yourself. I will wait for a few seconds. We do not have any speakers.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm closing the public hearing. Is there a motion to approve this matter? Commissioner Hardy.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution of the Historic Resources Commission of the City of Santa Ana approving the certificate of appropriateness for the property located at 2208 North Flower Street for historic exterior modification application number 2024-04.
Is there a second?
A second.
Commissioner Shipp, thank you. It's moved by Commissioner Hardy, second by Commissioner Shipp. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Christie?
Yes?
Commissioner Escamilla?
Yes?
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Shipp?
Yes.
Vice Chair Marashi? Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Padilla absent and Vice Chair Marashi abstaining.
Thank you. Welcome. Congratulations. There you go. You're quite welcome.
Moving on to administrative matters. The first item up for discussion is a selection of chair for the remainder of the 2024 term. We will now accept nominations for chair. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to make a nomination for Mr. Marashi.
Second.
Yeah. Third, yeah. Yeah, I think we see where this is going.
Any other nominations? All right.
Sure, Jack.
Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Christie?
Yes?
Commissioner Escamilla?
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Yes.
Commissioner Shipp?
Yes.
Vice Chair Marashi?
Yes.
Motion approved by a majority vote.
Thank you, everyone.
I didn't call her.
As the result of a nomination for chair, now is the election for vice chair for the remainder of the 2024 term. We will now accept nominations. Is there?
Vice Chair Marashi, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I actually did not call Commissioner Rodriguez when
sorry.
calling that. So, apologize. Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Motion approved by majority vote.
Thank you. As a result for the nomination for chair, now is the election for vice chair for the remainder of the 2024-2025 term. We will now accept nominations. Is there a nomination? Yes. Commissioner
I'd like
Hart.
to nominate Alberta Christie for vice chair. I'm sure. Is that something you would be able to accept?
Okay, are there any other nominations? Great. Secretary, please call for a roll vote. Vote.
Commissioner Christie? Commissioner Escamilla?
Yes.
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ship?
Yes.
Chair Marashi?
Yes.
Motion approved by majority vote with Commissioner Padilla absent.
Oh, thank you, guys.
Moving on to the ad hoc committee recommendation for the 2024 City of Santa Ana Historic Preservation Award winner. James Williams will now provide a brief presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Before James begins the presentation, I'd just like to say we're very pleased to bring back this annual recognition. We had put it on pause during the pandemic just due to a dearth of nominations, but here we are again, back to a sense of normalcy, and we definitely are excited to have you here tonight for this sort of resurrection. So thank you, and James, take it away.
Thank you. Excuse me. On October 17th, 2024, planning staff met with members of the ad hoc committee to discuss 5 eligible nominations received for the 2024 City of Santa Ana Historic Preservation Awards. The ad hoc committee consisted of Historic Resource Commissioners Janelle Hardy and Irma Jauregui, as well as local architect Robert Imboden, AIA. After deliberating, the ad hoc committee recommended the following 2024 award winners. The YMCA at 203 to 205 West Civic Center Drive, the Thomas House at 621 North Spurgeon Street, the Residence at 625 South Broadway, the Pomeroy House at 718 South Broadway, and the Historic Infill Project at 826 and 830 North Lacey Street. In addition, the ad hoc committee recommends special recognition for the Rafferty project. I'd like to just go through these real quickly. The YMCA is nominated for the category Award of Merit. The award winner is the property's owner, Caribou Industries. The next property selected by the ad hoc committee is the Thomas House in the category Rehabilitation. The award winner is the property's owner, Diana Vogel. The next nomination is the residential property at 625 South Broadway in the category Rehabilitation. The award winner is the property's owner, the firm 920 North Grand Avenue, LLC. The next nominee is the Pomeroy House in the category Rehabilitation. The award winner is Ali Mir Hossein, the property's owner. And the final nomination is the project at 826 and 830 North Lacey Street in the category Historic Infill Design. Let's show you the, I don't know what happened there. These are images of the award winners. And then finally, as mentioned before, the city received a nomination for the Rafferty project in downtown Santa Ana, which was not initially considered eligible. However, given the significance of the preservation and restoration of the Orange County Title Company building facade, planning staff is recommending special recognition be given for this project. Staff notes that this will be a separate recognition from the 2024 City of Santa Ana Historic Preservation Awards, in order to respect the award criteria and those individuals that may not have submitted because they did not meet eligibility requirements. Thank you. And with that, the staff recommends the following: that the Historic Resources Commission approve historic preservation awards for the YMCA, the Thomas House, 625 South Broadway, the Pomeroy House, and 826 and 830 North Lacey Street. In addition, it is recommended the commission approve special recognition for the Rafferty. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this matter?
Oh, I'd actually
Yes,
like
go
some
ahead.
discussion on this one. So I guess for me, and this is, for the rest of the board members, I'm sure the YMCA project will be awardable in the future, but I guess everything else that we're awarding is already occupied, work's done. I'm just not sure where the YMCA is on its full restoration. I think right now, everything's boarded up still, so I'm just a little hesitant to kind of lump these all together as far as like finished and completed projects. That's where I'm at, but I just wanted to kind of bring the point that would anyone here be okay with kind of the removal of the YMCA, and and then once the work is done, we can award it, but the work doesn't appear to be done. That's at least my perspective on why YMCA restoration work.
Would you like to make a motion in that
Well,
vein?
okay.
Go ahead. Now, Birgit,
Well, yeah, I'd
Commissioner
like
Christie.
to discuss
Okay.
first, yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the committee.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's
Yes.
give them a hand. On the committee, Commissioner Harvey, Commissioner Hardy, and who else was
And
on?
our architect. Yes.
Or, no, just staff?
Yep.
On that, thank you so much on this. I'd like to hear from our two commissioners of the importance of why they put the YMCA on the list. I want to hear from them.
It's on the list from my recollection is because the Caribou Industries, Mycara, has protected the property with a better quality fencing. The covering of the boarded up, he had it painted to replicate windows because it's a multi-million-dollar project. So this is just a recognition of the preservation during the process before it's not a finished product. It is just the fact that instead of having just plain boarded up, they took the care of simulating windows and doors and maintaining the landscape and so that's what's being recognized, if I'm correct, that we're recognizing that effort. Janelle, if you could help me.
Yes, I concur.
So it's that part, it's not it's not a recognition of the finished building. No, I agree with that. But the fact that they're preserving in a more pleasant style and the fencing are better qualities instead of just a chain link fence of construction. So that is the part that's being recognized, the effort to maintain the facade and the outside in a historic manner with the building in downtown versus just a construction site and boarded up. So kind of that's the short version, if you can correct me.
Yeah, and I guess with the marathon, so is the merit distinction like a special distinction, or are we just or a different classification there? So we're just awarding different classifications of awards?
Yes, this is nominated for the award of merit, which is not necessarily does not necessarily apply to something a more typical category of preservation, such as rehabilitation or restoration, but I think in this case, it's intended to recognize first steps that are helping to secure the property and respect the property's prominence in the city by, to some extent, beautifying the exterior with something that's a little more elaborate than just wood, plywood facing over the entries. And in addition to that, I think if you think of preservation more broadly, one aspect of this is that it's helping to secure the building in addition, from any sort of incursion by people who might occupy the property, and preserve it in that sense, and that is securing it. Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, and again, just for me, because it feels like it's a stalled out restoration effort, and I'm still a little partial to the demolition of the original, Orange County Chamber of Commerce building, or Santa Ana Chamber of Commerce building that was there. It was a very little structure that just got demolished and has been replaced with AstroTurf. So that's where, again, I'm just a little worried on it, but I understand the concept for the committee.
So is there a motion to approve this matter? Yes, Commissioner Christie.
I move that we approve the award winners. I have them back up again, please?
The recommendation?
The
back up on screen.
recommendation. Okay, the recommendation of approve the historic preservation awards to the following: the YMCA, Thomas House, 625 South Broadway, Promontory House, 826 and North Lacey Street, and approve recognition of special consideration to the Rafferty House. And also thank the committee for all their work. That's my motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Shipp. Secretary, please call roll.
Commissioner Christie?
Yes.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Yes?
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Shipp?
Yes.
Chair Marashi?
Yes.
Motion approved by a majority vote with Commissioner Padilla absent.
Terrific. Let's give the winners an applaud.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, consideration of request by Commissioner Escamilla to discuss listing of the Vasquez murals. Commissioner Mesquia would like to describe the item for the benefit of the entire commission's consideration. In order to take up this matter for preliminary review in our next meeting, we have to take a vote. Is there a motion to approve this matter? Yes, Commissioner Hardy, yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve this matter.
Okay, is there a second?
I would like to second.
All right. You got a second?
Chair, sorry to interrupt, but before taking the vote, Commissioner Escamilla should be afforded an opportunity to describe what the request is,
Oh,
and
okay.
then the commissioners.
All right.
Yeah,
I
no,
appreciate
that-
the enthusiasm.
Yeah, I know. I was like, okay, I didn't even have to say anything. It was great. But really more than anything, I think part of the role of this commission is to recognize historic resources and make proactive recommendations to the city council. I do believe that there's a whole kind of operation that the Art Commission is working on as far as a mural ordinance, but I do believe it is still our role in this commission to actively make a recommendation for items that have risen to historic prominence. And I do believe that Emilio Vasquez's murals, his legacy in Orange County's art scene, and now kind of global recognition and increased notoriety of his work warrants us making that recommendation to the city council. So I would love to have a little bit more detail. And I think previously, the commission has made recommendations when we were kind of still, founded like in the early 90s, right, where we would actively try to identify historic properties that were worth nominating across the city. And I do believe that, this is us kind of going back to our roots and saying like, hey, this is a really good mural. This is part of Santa Ana's cultural heritage, and we should make it easy for folks that buy these buildings to know that they're buying buildings with historic considerations attached to them, because some of these murals are hidden away and inside of restaurants, and without these designations, folks might not know like how important they are. So looking forward to a more formal discussion, at a later date.
Great. Before we take a vote here, does anybody know what other one item is on the historic register that's not a commercial building or a residential home? And I learned this from Ali. Go ahead. Does anybody know?
I'm gonna go with water tower?
Nope.
No?
The South Main Street sign.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
There you go.
Well, the reason why I'm applauding,
That's a monument, the monument,
because
the
when I was,
arch.
when
South Main.
we were when I was on the council, and we gave them money to improve their facade and make that historic, so, yes, we did it. I'm sorry, but I mean, what it was when we came in and what it is today, and is nationally known throughout, and to have this, that's a big boom for that area.
That's a big deal.
It is a
It is a
big
big deal.
deal, and we should be celebrating that. I mean, yes, it was, yes.
Secretary, please call for a roll vote.
Commissioner Christie?
Was there a second? There was a second, okay. Yes.
Commissioner Escamilla?
Yes?
Commissioner Hardy?
Yes.
Commissioner Jauregui?
Yes.
Commissioner Padilla? Commissioner Rincon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yes.
Commissioner Ship?
Yes.
Vice Chair Marashi?
Yes.
Motion approved by majority vote, with Commissioner Padilla absent.
That concludes the administrative matters. Moving on to the study session, Planning Manager Ali will now provide a brief overview before James Williams provides the presentation.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
As part of our continued process of improvements, in administering the Chapter 30 for our community, whenever we run across issues as part of our administration process, we try to look for creative ways to address issues so that we can continue to improve the ordinance for preservation of historic resources in the city. In the past few years, we've run across a number of issues with historic properties and historic preservation concerns in our city that we want to bring forth for the commission to consider, comment upon, and hopefully with your support and agreement, and as well as input, we can start drafting regulations to address these matters. From a staff standpoint, we believe that these are critical matters that needs to be addressed as they do occur, and we currently don't have any mechanism to address them. I will allow a time for some comments here by our planning manager, Ali, if you have any. Otherwise, we can proceed with the presentation.
No further comments. Thanks.
What are we doing?
Thank you. Okay, so the first topic for the study session is historic property transfer disclosure. And for the purposes of the study session, that refers to a legally required notification from a seller to a buyer that the property being sold is designated as a historic property, and therefore its alteration may be subject to special regulations. Typically, disclosure is made via a form signed by a seller and buyer before or at the time of the sale. Historic property disclosure requirements can serve the following important functions. First, promoting the preservation of designated historic properties. And second, making real estate transactions more transparent. To the first point, in addition to informing a new owner of their property's historic status, historic property disclosure, if implemented well, can help to educate a buyer about the regulations and responsibilities transferred with the property, including responsibilities related to the permitting process for exterior alterations. Because new homeowners are often eager to make big changes to their houses and are sometimes unaware of the regulations that limit exterior alterations to historic properties, a timely and informative disclosure requirement can help to keep them informed of any special regulations before they begin making costly and inappropriate changes to their property. To the second point, better awareness through historic property disclosure can help to ensure that buyers and sellers finalize a real estate transaction with a shared understanding of the responsibilities and restrictions transferred with the property. Adherence to disclosure rules can protect buyers from unexpected regulatory requirements, while sellers may be potentially safeguarded against certain liabilities. Currently, the Santa Ana Municipal Code does not require historic property disclosures at the time of a real estate sale. However, the Planning Division has begun recommending the inclusion of a disclosure requirement as a condition of approval for some historic property-related applications. This method can only be applied to historic properties involved in business that comes before the Historic Resources Commission, such as a Mills Act application or some resolutions. Should the City of Santa Ana pursue adopting a historic property disclosure requirement, the regulations of the cities of Santa Monica, Laguna Beach, and Beverly Hills, in addition to a few out-of-state jurisdictions, may serve as helpful models. A review of the existing regulations show they typically consist of four main elements. The typical contents may include description of the applicability of the disclosure, what must be disclosed, and by what means. Typically, this would be a disclosure form, the timing of disclosure and submittal of paperwork, and remedies or penalties for the failure to disclose. The ordinance surveyed for this review typically begin by defining the types of historical status that require formal disclosure. In most cases, though, disclosure requirement is triggered only by the sale of a property that is individually listed or listed as a historic district contributor on a local register, or sometimes individual and contributing resources listed on national or state registers. The success of a historic disclosure requirement may be determined to some extent by the means of disclosure a specific jurisdiction requires. The least stringent requirements are represented by disclosure forms signed at the time of sale that only prompt the buyer to attest they have no knowledge that the property in question has been designated as a historic property. These will solicit no information from a seller. While this type of disclosure seems to limit a seller's legal liability, it does little to raise the buyer's awareness of the property's historic status or of any relevant preservation-related restrictions or obligations. From a preservation-minded perspective, a better approach is represented by the many disclosure forms that require more detailed affirmations by both seller and buyer that a property is designated as historic, and as such is subject to specific local regulations. Such forms may, for example, prompt the seller to affirm whether the property's historical status requires special design review of proposed alterations, whether exterior alterations completed by the seller were subject to all applicable permitting and inspection, and whether there were pending permit applications for the property. In theory, this model of disclosure form is beneficial in that it requires the seller to pass along to the buyer detailed knowledge of the property's history and maintains a symmetry of knowledge between the seller and buyer while keeping the buyer informed of preservation-related restrictions transferred to the property. A somewhat common variation on this type of disclosure form also directs the buyer to additional information related to permitting requirements, preservation and architectural guidelines, and other items. For example, the City of Santa Monica disclosure form features embedded web links to pages with information on Santa Monica's historic preservation program, its 311 General Information Program, and the Santa Monica Planning Department's online permit service center. Further afield, the City of Elgin, Illinois, has a good example that provides a QR code that allows the buyer to access that city's architectural design guidelines, which are, of course, of use in their approach to any sort of alterations. Jurisdictions with existing historic disclosure ordinances generally specify that the disclosure of historic status is required at a specified interval before sale or at the time of the sale. Some jurisdictions, including the City of Santa Monica, also provide a timeline for the buyer to file disclosure paperwork with the local government. The consequences of a seller's failure to issue a disclosure can be categorized as either penalties or remedies. The city of Laguna Beach makes a violation of the disclosure ordinance a misdemeanor that can be punished by jail time of up to 6 months and/or a $1,000 fine. The City of Beverly Hills similarly makes violations of the disclosure ordinance a misdemeanor, but also makes non-disclosure subject to civil legal action. And the City of Santa Monica provides a similar set of penalties for failure to disclose, but also allows a buyer to negate a sale if the disclosure is made belatedly. For the negation of a sale to be legal, the buyer must notify the seller in writing and within a specified time frame. I'd like to present options for City Council, Historic Resources Commission action. The first is status quo, which would just include case-by-case implementation of disclosure requirements, as discussed previously. And the second would be adoption of staff-recommended ordinance text requiring historic property transfer disclosure.
So to help open the discussion, as you can see, for as mature of an ordinance that we have, this is a very basic, fundamental step that we can take to really create awareness of the city's program. We receive a lot of complaints on historic properties being worked on, and new owners claim that they don't know about the designation and the city's policies and regulations. So we believe this is a step in the right place for us to start to not only create awareness of the program, but also to ensure that homeowners, when they buy the homes, they understand what they're signing on to.
Are you looking for a recommendation from us or just?
At this point, if you believe what we recommended is something that you would like to see for staff to pursue, all we need is just feedback saying that we agree with your recommendation, begin the work on drafting any language for later consideration by the commission so that we can forward to the city council.
Sure. So I think by a show of hands, let's show our approval. Looks unanimous.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Chair,
Yes.
did want to, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I guess just also, if we can bring in, and I'm not sure exactly how this is tracked on the, the listserv, the Realtor of List Service. I want to say IMLS, but I don't do real estate. But anyways, if we can just look at maybe some of the top sellers within Santa Ana and make sure that the realtors that they're apprised, so that maybe they might be able to have some feedback as well. I know that there's a gathering of them that meet like in downtown for coffee, like once every 2 to 3 weeks or something. So it might be a good forum to just let people know that, hey, this is the thing, it's a requirement that might be coming down the pike. And they might be able to help out with suggestions as to how to implement most efficiently at that point.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
I have been a realtor since 1988. So I have a love for our city. The minute I've walked into the city, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got jewels and we need education. But also being a realtor, when I have a listing, I absolutely disclose everything. And years ago, before Arizona Missions, I would walk my client downtown to pull all permits existing so they know what they're buying. Number one. Now we're not allowed to, but I tell them every place to get disclosures and information. And I think if the city has a disclosure that if you are buying a historic home, please, something, because if it's on a code, then all the realtors will be obligated to put it in that package versus an occasional or case by case, because not every realtor works in Orange County, not every realtor is trained, not every realtor has that unless it's a standard practice. My question would be, the cities that have a very successful program in preserving their buildings, what is their process, what disclosures, or how do they do this in order for us to also, instead of inventing the wheel, but I think a full disclosure citywide would at least have that in their package. This city, for example, if we have septic tanks, everybody would have that disclosure. go and look at your septic tanks and see if it's up to date, but we don't. So having something that would be a standard practice would be easier on the realtors, both as listing and buyers, to be aware, oh, we're buying in a location where we have a historic overlay, we're buying a property. And then that way, there's full disclosure on both sides, because when the client on one side or the realtors and all, and who have investors, how many investors have come into the city since COVID? Hundreds, and they're not aware of it, whether by good faith or not, and then you start losing all the character of the buildings, and little by little, I've been seeing this chipped away. The vinyl windows come in, the doors come in, because they do get old. But if there's a disclosure, then they're put on notice, I'm buying something special, or no, this is not exactly what I'm looking for. So I think that would be a education, but it's easier to manage versus a case by case. Yes, there's some realtors that only specialize in Santa Ana, but it's a constant moving in and out of the industry. So that's my two.
Thank you. And we'll be certainly to look at those issues that you've raised as part of our process, as we do want to ensure that not only realtors that work in the city knows about it, but anyone who complete a transaction in the city would also be notified. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Yes, Commissioner Harding.
I really don't know anything about how this works, but it seems to me that as part of the disclosure, whether it's through realtors or required or not, that a packet could be put together for support purposes, to contact information, planning, HRC, neighborhoods, SDs, because say somebody wants to buy a property and they find out it's historic, they're still interested, but they don't want to be left in limbo. They want to be able to join a community and say, look, I have this property, can I share my concerns? And is there any help out there or anybody to hold my hand? So that kind of thing. I don't know if other cities have that or not.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next issue.
Thank you. Okay, so the next topic is about how city regulations treat the designated historic building or structure versus versus the site it's built on, or the remainder of the property outside the building footprint. Okay, so recent projects in Santa Ana have highlighted a gap in the city's existing historic resources regulations that allows for new work on the site of historic property without first going through formal historic review by planning staff or the Historic Resources Commission. I'd like to give an overview of the city's current regulations and procedures, a review of the way several jurisdictions in California address or do not address new work proposed for the site of a historic district, and some options that HRC may consider. For the purpose of this presentation, a historic property generally consists of two major components, a building and a site. The building, quite obviously, is just the main built feature, which tends to be the central focus of any designation and embodies the historical significance. For our purposes, the site component of a historic property is the immediate setting of the building and is limited to the areas outside the building footprint, but contained within the property's boundaries. It may contribute to the historical significance of the historic property, either as it defines spatial relationships, such as a setback from the public right-of-way, or as the location of other designed site features that, aside from the building. Because the site component of a historic property may be character defining, changes to the site may affect the historic integrity of a property. Although changes to the site have the potential to affect most of the recognized 7 aspects of integrity as defined by the National Park Service, they will most directly relate to the integrity of setting, as explained in National Park Service's National Register Bulletin 15 An intact setting will help to convey a property's historical character, specifically the conditions under which the property was built and the functions it was intended to serve. Therefore, in some cases, changes to the setting may have a strong impact on the property's historic character. Consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, which are the most common basis of historical review for development projects, typically ensures that a property's integrity of setting is retained. Standards 9 and 10 apply most directly to changes to the site or setting. In thinking about how the city currently deals with issues related to the site versus the building of a designated historic property, we should consider two aspects of Chapter 30. First, the chapter's definition of the historic property, and second, how the proposed work on the site of a historic property relates to the certificate of approval requirements. Currently, Section 30-1 of the Municipal Code defines a historic property as a building, structure, object, or site designated as having historic significance and listed on the federal, state, or local register of historical properties. Note that the use of the word site in this section, while not explicitly defined, surely refers to a historic site. That is a location where some important event took place. Nothing in this definition suggests it applies to the site of a historic building or site in the sense of the immediate setting of a building. Generally, the term historic property is used throughout the chapter without further explanation, and the chapter does not explicitly reference the site as a component of a historic property. Section 30-6, modification of historic properties, seems to reinforce this the sense that the site is not necessarily considered a part of a historic property, or not subject to the same regulations, that is. The main thrust of Section 30-6 is that, quote, no exterior physical modifications other than those identified by the Historic Resources Commission for administrative approval by city staff shall be permitted with respect to a historic structure until the Historic Resources Commission approves such a request at a duly noticed public hearing and issues a certificate of appropriateness. The term historic structure is not defined in the chapter, but in this case as well, a literal reading suggests the site outside the building footprint is not subject to the regulation. As it relates to a typical HEMA application review, Section 30-6 appears to apply only to changes to the exterior of a building or structure per se. It has no requirements that would trigger the review of a project consisting only of modifications outside the building footprints. There is a subsection of 30-6 briefly addressing changes to dangerous buildings that addresses the site or setting, but this is just really more to, seems more to reinforce the regulation that new construction on a demolished property should blend in as with the surrounding environment. There is one portion of the Santa Ana Code of Ordinances that does address site modifications, but with a limited application. Specifically, that is Section 41-194.4. This provides for the review of new accessory dwelling units on a designated historic property. The section requires that any such new construction adhere to the Secretary of the Interior standards. What's important for our purposes is that standards 9 and 10, as mentioned before, intend that the adjacent or new or related new construction within the property's boundaries should be constructed in a manner that does not impair the integrity of the historic building's immediate environment or its site. Planning staff's application of historic resources regulations does help to mitigate some of the gaps in the code. At the time of the initial evaluation and designation of a historic property, staff can, and sometimes do, indicate when a building site or aspect of the site qualifies as a character-defining feature that should be preserved. This information can be useful in guiding historic review of projects that affect a site or property. However, because existing regulations do not provide a trigger for historic review, in these cases, projects propose changes to historic properties involving only site modifications technically may be subject only to general planning review and are not only under extraordinary circumstances. They tend to be forwarded to planning staff for historic review or to the Historic Resources Commission. So to identify possible solutions for the Commission's consideration, planning staff reviewed certificate of appropriateness regulations for several other California jurisdictions. This review found a few regulations that explicitly pertain to modifications of the site of a historic property. However, regulations that only implicitly regulate the site seem more common. Some jurisdictions have adopted robust code language pertaining to the certificate of appropriateness review of site modifications. The City of Long Beach, for example, specifies that an application may be rejected if the project would result in the isolation of a property or alteration of its setting such that the historic character and integrity are no longer reflected in the site. As provided in that ordinance, examples of an appropriate work that would be subject to regulation include such site modifications as the construction of a new parking lot. The City of West Hollywood has similar regulations on direct changes to the site or changes to the overall appearance of a property, referring to adherence to the standards as a yardstick for assessing proposed changes. West Hollywood requires explicitly that the preservation of a designated property's integrity of setting is a criterion for assessing the appropriateness of a project. So in some sense, it seems by the City of West Hollywood's ordinance, proposed site modifications could be a trigger for historic review. The approach in Pasadena is a little more circumscribed. Pasadena's ordinance implicitly regulates site improvements by making adherence to the standards the main yardstick for compliance. However, for individually designated resources, city historical review of proposed work is generally limited to changes that would be visible from the public right-of-way. Language in the ordinance provides that exceptions to this limit can be made in cases where the work proposed outside public view has potential to affect the significant character-defining features or the overall integrity of the property. For historic district contributors, historic review is limited only to projects that would be visible from the sidewalk, specifically excluding views from the alleys. Excuse me. Some jurisdictions, such as Glendale and the County of Los Angeles, specify which types of work are not subject to certificate of appropriateness procedures. Using the County of Los Angeles as an example, regulations there applied to limited extent to modifications of the site. Certain changes to the site of a historic property, including the construction of new ADUs and replacement of a front lawn with drought-resistant landscaping, may be subject to permitting, but are typically exempt from historic review by staff or their commission. Regulations that refer to the Secretary of the Interior standards, such as those of West Hollywood and Pasadena, may be particularly suited to regulating site improvements in historic districts because conformance with the standards requires that new construction match the scale and general character of the existing historical development and its wider surroundings. So this inherently places some limitations on the visibility of new proposed work from within the district, since the standards can effectively, for example, cap the height or footprint of new construction and keep it consistent with the surrounding environment. So I'd just like to present possible options for Santa Ana. Excuse me. the first option obviously is to remain with the status quo, under which planning staff and/or the commission may conduct informal review on a case-by-case basis sometimes under extraordinary circumstances. The next option would be to, aside from that, the city could adopt revisions to Chapter 30 so that projects involving site modifications will trigger certificate of approval processes under Section 30-6. For illustrative purposes, I'd like to present 3 frameworks of varying regulatory strength. These are not intended as actual proposals, but just more for illustrative purposes. So what I think of as a maximal alternative would consist of the following. Revise the text of sections 30-1 and 30-6 to make the site of a historic party part of the property specifically, and to revise section 30-6 to make modifications to the site of historic properties subject to consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards, much like the ADU regulations in section 41-194.4. Next, I think I would consider this a moderate alternative. You could revise the text of sections 30-1 and 30-6 to make the site part of the historic property as mentioned above, but then revise section 30-6 to specify that certain types of work that are subject to or exempt from certificate of appropriateness requirements. For example, development of a new ancillary building may be subject to regulation, or landscaping may be exempt. Under this option, you could also require consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for all certificate of appropriateness approval. A moderate option, what happened here? Oh, sorry. The moderate option may also limit character-defining site features subject to regulation to those identified in evaluation forms and other documentation prepared for the initial designation of the property. And then finally, what I would consider a minimal alternative or framework would be to, require historic review, consistency with the standards, and certificate of appropriateness approval for site modifications only when the new work will develop a structure that will be visible from the public right-of-way, as determined during staff level review. So if the city were to adopt some sort of regulation, I think there are some other elements that might be considered. I think one of these would be requirement that approval of site modifications only for specified, or would apply only to specified categorizations. So maybe just properties designated at the landmark or key level would be subject to these sort of regulations, and changes to something at the contributive level might be more lax. And also, I think some of the administrative work could be done differently, where staff might carefully itemize character-defining features such that it is explicitly stated whether and to what extent the site or site features would be considered character-defining. And that concludes my presentation for this topic.
Thank you. Does the commission have any comments or questions of staff?
And Chair Marashi, I'll just add, in addition to James's excellent presentation on a pretty deep topic, we will email, and the next one's pretty deep too. We will email this PowerPoint after tonight's meeting to the commission so that you have time to digest some of these ideas and let us know your thoughts in the coming weeks. But we do intend to want to move forward with you based on your direction. But nonetheless, we understand that tonight you may not have all your ideas at one time.
Of course. You know, I was kind of wondering if it made sense to even have an ad hoc committee of 2 commissioners and one of the staff, of the city staff, to go over some ideas and review it and then come back to the commission with a recommendation.
I think that's an
Everybody
excellent
good?
idea.
Okay, great. Who would like to serve with two commissioners.
Why don't we do this? Why don't
Okay,
we go
yeah.
through all the issues and then
Okay.
we can
Certainly.
make that at the end?
Great, okay,
So why don't we just go over the next one?
perfect.
Okay, so the third and final study session topic is demolition by neglect. Okay, so, sorry, didn't awaken any bad memories.
This one hurts.
Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. So demolition by neglect refers to a situation in which a property owner intentionally allows a historic property to suffer severe deterioration, potentially beyond the point of repair, and often with the intent to circumvent historic preservation regulations. Many localities lack regulations concerning demolition by neglect. The absence of such regulations is a commonly exploited loophole for property owners seeking to redevelop a historic property. In addition, the neglect of historic buildings may, I think it's kind of established here, contribute to dangerous conditions that threaten both a property's longevity and the safety of the public. The example here is the former United Presbyterian Church at 115 East Santa Ana Boulevard, which was destroyed in a fire in 2020 after sitting vacant for several years. Excuse me. The City of Santa Ana Municipal Code does not currently contain demolition by neglect regulations per se. There is a limited mention of demolition by neglect in section 30-2.34, which specifies that a property may not be removed from the Santa Ana Register of Historic Properties if, among other reasons, it has become ineligible due to a loss of integrity resulting from any illegal act or willful neglect by the owner. While this provision may offer some measure of deterrence, it does not provide the city with tools to intervene to prevent or arrest the willful neglect of a building. In looking at how demolition by neglect is handled elsewhere, we reviewed relevant literature and ordinances in other California jurisdictions. This review suggests a strong demolition by neglect ordinance must ensure a property owner suspected of a violation is granted due process. This may be accomplished through clearly articulating standards for maintenance and neglect, regulations and requirements, enforcement procedures, and an appeals process that ensures equitable application of the law. And let's see. So if we turn to the content of existing demolition by neglect regulations, we see that ordinances generally provide a summary definition of terms such as demolition by neglect, good repair, and/or deterioration. In addition, a good definition will also outline the applicability of the ordinance, that is, whether it applies to designated resources or also eligible resources, and who will be held liable under the regulation, such as the owner or owner's agent in most cases. In one example of an existing ordinance, the City of Huntington Park defines demolition by neglect as the deterioration of a property to unsafe or dangerous conditions, affecting such features as exterior walls, roof, chimneys, doors, windows, porches, etc. To the extent that this neglect could result in permanent damage and loss of historic resources, architectural and/or historic significance. A strong ordinance will also establish clear standards of maintenance or good repair necessary to avoid the condition of neglect. The City of Glendale's standards cover the following variables. It applies to any property that is designated, nominated, or found to be potentially eligible, and identifies certain actions or inactions that an owner may, of an owner that may constitute demolition by neglect. So these would include any of the following actions to the extent that they cause structural unsoundness, general decay, or loss of character-defining features. So the actions would be lack of effort to maintain, allowing, quote, pests or vandals to cause damage, and failure to take reasonable measures to prevent ingress of water or wind through the roof walls or apertures. Glendale's standards of good repair also emphasize maintaining the property's general good condition and continued eligibility for designation, which I think is important. That city's ordinance also states that every owner of a historic resource is required to maintain the property in a manner that ensures its continued lawful and reasonable use, that ensures its continued eligibility for listing on the Glendale Register of Historic Resources, California Register of Historical Resources, and/or National Register. Another approach is to provide specific examples of deteriorated conditions to building elements that would either meet or violate the neglect ordinance. The city of Fresno has adopted standards of good repair that specify violations. For example, building elements so attached that they may fall and injure members of the public or property, deteriorated or inadequate foundation, deteriorated, crumbling, or loose exterior plaster, and other items that are listed on this slide. Moving on to the topic of enforcement, broadly, this will require measures for the abatement of neglectful conditions, and 2, penalties that would deter violations. So under most ordinances we reviewed, abatement processes will generally begin with a complaint and then city inspection and review of the property. If the review finds an instance of demolition by neglect, the city's objective is then to ensure the necessary repairs are made to restore, or if necessary and feasible, to reconstruct the property. Under many ordinances, the property owner will have a specified period of time, say 30 days, to begin rectifying the cited issues, and in sometimes is given a set period in which they must complete the repairs or reconstruction. In Pasadena, the city can require restoration or reconstruction to the property's historic condition in cases where there exists the necessary documentation to actually faithfully rebuild or repair the property. If the previous appearance can't be substantiated, the owner is required to seek permits for the alterations that have been done, including any that were done through neglect. In some jurisdictions, if an owner fails to make repairs necessary to remedy neglectful conditions, the city may complete the repairs at the owner's expense, with the cost being recouped by placing a lien on the property. In the interest of fairness and equity, the city of Fresno has recently implemented financial and technical assistance as part of its abatement process. In Fresno's case, technical assistance may include design guidance from the city architectural committee, and financial assistance comes in the form either of participation in the Mills Act program, or when it is necessary and feasible for the city to do so, the city will reimburse maintenance costs to a property or repair costs to a property owner. In addition to abatement, cities have instituted penalties to deter property owners from engaging in demolition by neglect. In cases where there's been an effective demolition of the property through neglect, penalties may include a moratorium on new development on the property in question, fines, or jail time. In Pasadena, if a historic property is effectively demolished through neglect, the moratorium the city may institute can range from 3 to 5 years, and this will depend on the level of designation for the property. The City of Glendale requires that following the conclusion of any development moratorium that's placed on a property in violation, new development of the property must be completed within the footprint of the lost historic building. Some jurisdictions issue fines for violations. Sometimes that's on top of the moratorium. In Fresno, if a property owner fails to, quote, take action, as it says in the ordinance, to stop their property's deterioration, the city may issue a fine of up to $100,000. So now I'd like to present some options for commission action. Aside from the option of taking or remaining with the status quo, these represent basically just common variations among the different general components of demolition by neglect ordinances that I discussed. So things like the definition and applicability, maintenance standards, abatement, and and penalties. So starting with, excuse me, definition and applicability. A definition may generally outline conditions that constitute demolition by neglect or itemize specific conditions, actions, or maintenance standards. And this may apply to designated potential individual or contributing historic resources, and in some cases, to non-contributing resources within a historic district. As for maintenance standards, these will generally specify the conditions that violate good repair and constitute neglect, such as failure to maintain eligibility for designation. A strong program will establish procedures for reporting departmental investigation and review and noticing. Options for abatement may include city assistance to property owners, as discussed above. This may be technical or financial, or that the city may take the lead in restoring the property, but at the owner's expense. As for penalties, it's fairly straightforward. There are fines, as mentioned in Fresno. The fine may be up to $100,000. And then the very common approach of the development moratorium has several permutations. There may be a range in the moratorium period depending on the designation status. And as I mentioned before, there's the relatively strict requirement that new development must be in the historic footprint of the lost building. And then finally, the appeals process will help to ensure due process. And in the examples reviewed for the study session, appeals may be considered by the Historic Resources Commission, often with the final appeal sent to the City Council. And with that, I conclude this topic.
Great, thank you very much. Unless anybody has any quick comments or suggestions, I suggest we hold them until we have the ad hoc committee and then come back and discuss it at that time.
Yeah,
Okay.
want to volunteer
Yes,
for the ad hoc.
Commissioner Mesquite.
Sorry, I just wanted to volunteer for the ad hoc.
Great, okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes the study session. Moving on to staff comments.
Actually, if we just can conclude with the selection of an ad hoc, that'd be very helpful.
Okay.
So that we can conclude this item.
Sure.
Volunteer one.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
Great, all right.
Great, we have our two, thank you.
Well, it doesn't need to be limited to two. We'd have three if possible, right?
We can have three.
Okay.
That'll be.
Good, all right, there we
Yeah,
go.
all
our
three,
three.
yeah.
Thank you very much for all.
Thank you
that.
for the record, Commissioner Escamilla, Commissioner Harrigy, and Commissioner Rincon.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks. Okay.
Thank you, James, for that in-depth, very in-depth, and the options that we have to win. Congratulations on that.
Moving on to staff comments.
Thank you. I want to congratulate again Chair Marashi on your chairmanship, as well as Vice Chair Christie. I also want to welcome Commissioner Rodriguez to joining our commission, and I look forward to working with all of you. And finally, just on behalf of the staff, I want to acknowledge and thank former Chair Tim Rush for his many years of service with the city as well on this commission. And so I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Rush. And finally, the nomination for the awardees for receiving the historic awards, we're tentatively scheduling that for the first meeting of December for City Council. I would highly encourage any members that are available to attend the meeting, but I, at minimum, ask that the chair, if not the vice chair, attend at the meeting. And we will also be inviting the awardees for recognition by the City Council. Right now, as I mentioned, is tentatively for December 3rd. We will finalize it and send information out to you once we have everything. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes staff comments. Moving on to closing comments from the commission. Commissioner Christie?
Thank you, Chair Marashi. Congratulations. Thank you to all of you for my selection as vice chair. I won't let you down, that's for sure. And welcome to Commissioner Rodriguez and so forth. She just reminded me where we met before on that. And congratulations to all for staff and all that you do for the city. And thank you, Nuvia, for all you do to keep me with the programs and so forth. I really appreciate it. And since this is the holiday week, that's coming out, let's be thankful for everything, our families. When we get together with our families, just remember that, we're all one, and that coming together and be thankful for the little things. It's always the little things that is appreciated more than the big things, just being there. And Christmas celebration, once again, time for family. And people that are out there, volunteer at a church to do dinners, volunteer in your neighborhoods on programs, and giving children a gift, during that time that our neighborhoods do so well within their area, putting on programs for the children. But once again, thankful for a country that gives us a freedom to do these things. So thank you all, and that's all I have to say.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
I want to say thank you to everybody for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be here, and no further comment.
Commissioner Mesquia.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, welcome, first of all. Nice to have another colleague here. I guess the two things for staff. I'm trying to remember the order. First one, I guess on the earlier recusal, I didn't necessarily notice it from the 500-foot radius map initially, but then I did a kind of Google Street View like distance requirement, or just like to do the measurement. I know it's probably not as accurate, but there might be whatever kind of parameters you're using for the 500-foot radius map. It doesn't appear to be doing it from the edges, but maybe from the center point of the parcel polygon. So it's actually maybe undercounting that 500-foot radius. So like I was at probably 490 or something on that radius map, 493 or something. Sorry, 493 on the Google line point to point from one edge of the parcel to the other closest edge of the parcel, or door to door, but not from the center point of the parcel. I know it might get a little wonky, but if that makes sense to staff, yes, okay. So just a little thing there. And then the other one was if we can also make sure that the PowerPoint's uploaded onto the website. I think, and don't know exactly where it would go, but just so that the public has access to it as well. I just didn't see it there, but maybe I missed it.
If I can help address it, we'd certainly be happy to post the PowerPoint after our presentation, because oftentimes we do have some late development information that we want to add to, so I want to make sure that that's understood. We can absolutely post after the meeting.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Yep, and yeah, that's about it.
Commissioner Ship? Comments? Commissioner Rincon?
No comment.
Commissioner?
Well, congratulations to both Chair Marashi and Vice Chair Alberta Christie. And thank you for all the work you've done. I'm very interested in developing municipal codes and how to not only encourage our homeowners, but people wanting to belong to this wonderful city. So for that, I'm very excited. Thank you again. And for the holidays, the best to everybody. We are all in this wonderful city, and let's celebrate. And then on a special note, everybody's invited to the Wilshire Square Holiday Christmas Parade, first Saturday in December. All the high school will be attending, and Modern Day, and it's getting bigger and better. So it's the parade is inside Wilshire Square, and our cookie booth and Santa will be visiting again, and that will be, event starts at 1, parade at 3. And look at our website, and all the details will be there. It's a free event for everybody. And thank you. And welcome to Commissioner Rodriguez to joining us. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you. I just want to echo all the same sentiments. Thank you very much to the staff. Really appreciate it. James Williams, thank you very much for the excellent presentations tonight. I love the 3 topics that you brought up for study sessions. I think they're extremely important, so thank you for bringing those up. Again, welcome, Commissioner Rodriguez. Looking forward to working with you. Again, thank you. And again, congratulations to Commissioner Christie, Vice Chair Christie now. And thank you very much for the support. So thank you. The next regular meeting will be held on Friday, January 10th, 2025 at 4:30 in the City Council chambers located at 22 Civic Center Plaza. Until then, the meeting adjourned. Yes.
My thing has January 2nd. Yeah.
There was a email that went out from the secretary saying, can everybody make the 10th? But they wanted to push it back
That's a
to a
Friday?
special meeting.
That's a Friday?
Yes,
Okay.
Friday, January 10th, and it appears the majority of commissioners have said that that date works for the group. So, but if you still need to respond, you can respond directly to the commission secretary.
I think I missed that. Maybe I didn't. I don't know.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
We're closed. Thank you.